Of day 5. So in this session we have Professor Simon P. Sisaj. She is a associate professor of Department of Electrical Engineering, NIT Trichy. So on behalf of organizing committee, let me welcome you, sir, for the faculty development program organized by the Department of Electrical Engineering and sponsored by AICT Atal Training and Learning Academy, New Delhi. So Professor Shimon, Sisaj P. Shimon, he did his PhD in the Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Roorkee, in the year 2006, and MTech in Applied Electronics in the year 2001, and BTech from BTech in the year 1999 in Electrical and Electronics Department. Currently, he's an associate professor, and his research interest in application of soft computing techniques for power system optimization. So he has completed more than 5 sponsored research projects, and he has filed patents, 5 patents. So he has published more than 100 research papers in reputed international conferences and journals. So now I request Professor Sisaj P. Simon, to share his screen and to start his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Just give me that enable button, yes, so that I can share.
Right, sir. Right. So now you are a presenter, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
You can start.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, is it you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you. So I know that I have to wind up by 1:15. But anyhow, what I'm trying to do is that the title is basically deep learning neural networks and forecasting time series signals. So initially, before going to the deep neural networks, I'll just have a revisit of the architecture of simple neural networks. Of course, I won't be that much. I'll be a little bit faster because just getting an idea of simple neural networks. If you go to deep neural networks, you'll get to have a better idea. And few activation functions for deep neural networks. And because I should also discuss about one of the important successful neural networks, that is the standard backpropagation neural networks and error propagation, so that you will get an idea how things are happening in the deep neural networks, and what are the earlier developments of recurrent neural networks and its architecture. Okay, and these architectures and all, we can just go ahead. And the important thing is that what is the concept of recurrent neural network, especially the vanishing gradient problem, and how it can be solved, and what are the successful deep learning neural networks, especially this long short-term memory and gated recurrent unit, which is very good for time series prediction and forecasting. And I'll just give an introduction about an application, especially electricity price forecasting. And I will also try to give you a intro how you can do the kind of forecasting using deep learning toolbox. Okay, of course it is a vast area, but I'll try to see if I can cover it as early as possible. Okay, so as you know that this is a biological neural network. Of course, I don't want to explain much. Only thing is that you should know that there are 3 important components. One we are called dendrites. Dendrites receives the information from the axon tracks, okay, at a point called the area called synapse. Synapse is the where you'll be able to see the connection point where dendrites is able to receive the information. It is able to get it from the axon, and you can see the connection places. You're having synapse here. You can see synapse here. You can see synapse here. So these are some of the places you're able to have synapses. Okay, and you can also see the axon ends. So these are the axon ends you are having here, Okay, it is again connected to that of the entry of the dendrites. So as such, if you see, you're having dendrites, auxin. Okay, so one dendrites receives information and auxin gives information, and the connecting point is basically, or the connecting part is basically the synapses, and you're having a cell body. Cell body is a one, you can see it here. Okay, so in this part you can all kinds of computations and things are taking place. So once it takes a decision, it fires the information through this auxin tracks and gives at the auxin end. So this is one thing that you have to understand. And again, if you see, there are certain things that you have to understand. Information processing at this neurons and synapses. One is the information is always unidirectional in nature. You can see it's not bidirectional. Okay, so whenever the information is sent from the cell body, okay, the information is processed always in the unidirectional. So that is one of the characteristics of these neural networks, and it has got the kind of synaptic transmission. Okay, especially you can see I already told this part is the dendrite part. Okay, and this is the end of the auxin. You can see the bulging kind of sac, you are able to see it here. You can see it here, a bulging kind of sac, you're able to see it here, and inside you can see this kind of sacs will be there. The sacs, you're having certain kinds of neurotransmitter molecules. So whenever the information is passing through this, these sacs will burst and it will give these neurotransmitter molecules to the dendrites. So in this way, the synaptic transmission is carried out, especially when there is a decision is made, there is some kind of a spike is there. Okay, that is able to see here. So basically it is nothing but it is from the auxin potential. So from the cell body, you will be able to get the spikes, which is transferred to the auxin tracts, and it is able to give the information, and information processing is taking place. So this is the simple biological neural network to artificial neural network. So dendrites receives information. So you can see the information is being received here. Okay, some information is received. So here finally it is basically summed up, and a kind of decision has to be taken. So generally it is taken by certain kinds of a threshold function. Sometimes we call it as an activation function. Okay, and it can be an output. Either it will be having a 1 or 0. It will be a win or it will not be win. So like that kind of decision it will be there. Even if the threshold is greater by 1 unit or 5 unit, the output is same. Okay, so that is what we are able to see in this kind of artificial neural network. And you can also see here the weights are there. Basically these weights are nothing but the synaptic strength, or I can say the strength of the connection is basically determined with the help of these weights. So basically what will happen, we will try to multiply this input with the with these weights. Okay, and it can be I don't know whether it's 1 0 or whatever, maybe plus I11 into W11. It goes on like this, and finally if you keep on summed up, finally you'll be having a bias. Okay, bias is basically added to improve the learning, and you're having a summing junction, and based upon the activation function, those is activation function. Okay, a decision is taken now. So this way we'll be able to see the model. Okay, so already we had seen about the connections, weights, and you'll be having the units output and the influences of this auxin. So there are a lot of classification you're having. You're having single layer, you're having multi-layer neural network, and competitive. Single layer, generally, there is example is we call as perceptron. It is having only one layer only, and it cannot it cannot solve certain kinds of problem or XOR problem. Okay, so it cannot classify. Okay, so that certain issues are there in the case of a single layer. However, I'm not going deep into it. Then you're having multi-layer. Sometimes this is also called as multi-layer perceptron. Multi-layer perceptrons. Okay, so you'll be having more number of layers. Okay, so that is one thing that you'll be having. And supervised, unsupervised, and reinforced is there. Supervised is basically, you're having a target. Okay, so we are having an aim, based upon the aim, we try to adjust ourselves to reach that particular aim. For example, a classroom teaching. In the classroom teaching, we'll be having a feedback mechanism. So with the help of the feedback mechanism, the clarity in discussion or the clarity in learning will take place. So, you'll be having a source and you'll be having a target. Okay. And always, whenever, we send this, we train this network, it will have an output. Okay. It will have an output. So the output minus the target, there will be an error. Okay, so we always try to minimize the error. So with the help of some kind of feedback mechanism or by adjusting the weight. So these things all comes under supervised learning. So you'll be having a source and you'll be having a target. And then what about unsupervised network? Unsupervised network, it doesn't have a target, only it will be having a source. So what will happen? It's something like that, it automatically, so it's something like that, we know birds of the same flock fly together. The same kind of agents will able to give the same kind of output. So that way it will try to classify. Okay, even when you are in a group, finally if you're going to a place or in a meeting, you'll try to see who are the people in my place, so that you will try to club together and you move on together. So that is one way. So basically in unsupervised learning network, you don't have a target, but however we try to classify based upon the nature of the output obtained by these inputs. So it is having only source. Okay, so generally these type of unsupervised neural network is used for classification. And however, when it comes to the supervised, we are having the weights. The weights are being adjusted. Okay, here also the weights will be adjusted. Okay, I'm not going too deep into the supervised and unsupervised. I just give an idea. Reinforced means what we try to do in reinforce. Reinforce is part of any of these two things, that is supervised and unsupervised. Basically we'll try to have a control over the weights. For all these things, the error has to be minimized. One thing is that we have to minimize the training error. That is very, very important. In order to minimize the training error, the weights should be properly adjusted or updated. Weights updation is something very, very important. So based upon the error, the weights will be adjusted in such a way that the error should be minimized. It is something like that, when we were there in schools, maybe in small standards, we'll be during the time of assembly, we'll be able to see that all these guys will be in a they'll be queuing in a line. And once the assembly is over, I'm just talking about the small children. Okay, the teacher will be there at the backside with a stick, but these days you cannot have all these things. Okay, you cannot beat the children or students, whatever maybe, but those days, the teachers will be having a stick. So immediately, once the assembly is over, the students has to walk in a proper line to their classrooms. Okay, so what will happen in between when they are moving? Suddenly one student will just go out of track. Okay, so what the teacher will do, the teacher will just go and just hit the or beat the student's leg. So what will happen? The student will again come back to the line. I'm just talking about small children. Okay, so automatically they will form or reinforce the line. The same thing happens in this case of reinforced learning. We try to have a control over these weights, where we try to reinforce the weights such that the weights are not updated in the wrongful manner. It is being reinforced or updated in the proper manner. So basically the reinforced learning, we can be a part of this supervised and unsupervised learning, and different types of modes are there, especially the training modes. Online you can have the immediate, the present data or the present output itself is again trained, so that it can be used in the online mode. Offline mode basically will be having historical data. Generally we do it for forecasting, okay, and planning kind of activities. So this comes under offline mode. And batch and incremental kind of training. Batch is something what is happening right now. You're having 68 or 70 audience are there, okay, or in a classroom. Okay, simultaneously I'm trying to give a batch training about these neural networks and deep neural networks and all these things. Okay, suppose incremental training is something like a tuition, and individual attention is being taken care. So individually you try to call one person and you try to clear his doubts and go ahead and help him in learning. So batch and incremental learning are used based upon the necessary. Batch means as whole, the whole input patterns are being trained simultaneously. Incremental means one by one we'll try to train it. Okay, and finally we'll be having the testing mode also will be there, and in between we'll also have another kind of mode. See, once the training is done, we will be going for the testing mode, but also there is another important mode that we call it as validating. What do you mean by validation? You know, in those days, even now, when my mother cook, what she will do, no, she'll cook in the vessel. She'll just take. Nowadays we are having pressure cooker and thing, but still sometimes she used to cook in the pot. Okay, so whenever she picks, whenever it is cooking, you know, whether the rice is cooked properly or not, how you'll check, you know, during the time of cooking, she will take one rice and check it up and put it in her mouth and check whether the rice is cooked or not. The same thing happen, so that you'll be having an idea whether all the rice in the pot is being cooked or not. So that is what we call it as a validation. So there are three kinds of operation. One is training, another one is a validation, and another one is testing. So all these things happens even in deep learning neural networks also. Okay, there are different kinds of activation functions are there. Purelin is a, you know, linear kind of activation function. It will be based upon how the input, based upon the input it will also give an output. Log sig model, it will be have an output between 0 and 1. Tan sig, it will be having an output between -1 and 1. Okay, and hard limb, maybe it will be having from 0 and 1. Hard limbs, it will be having between -1 and +1. So it will be having 0, n and 1. You'll be having sat limbs, you'll be having I think -1, n and +1. So basically if you look at the activation function, the output can be either discrete or it can be continuous. So that is something that you have to understand. You can have both the type of output. Okay, so when it comes to classification, these are certain kinds of architecture that we are having. Neurons are arranged in layers and same activation function, same patterns for connection. Okay, so you can see, so this is one layer of network. You know, when I'm talking about layer, it is one layer, so it is called single layer. Sometimes, you know, some books say it is having two layer. Just you know, they say it's an input layer, and another one they called it this is an output layer, but actually this is a single layer network only. It's a layer of weights. Sometimes you also call this input unit layer as input buffer layer. You know, the input is got and it sends to the next stage. Okay, so here, as if you look at this is a single layer of weights. If you look at that, as Lakshmi Madam was talking about this neural network, it is having history from 1940 itself. People are working, okay, on this area. So it's just a long, you know, long years they were working. Okay, so they were trying to see how best they can model the brain cell. So that is what they're doing. That is nothing but your neuron. Okay, so perceptron, and you're having multi-layer perceptron is there. So in the multi-layer perceptron, especially we are having something called backpropagation neural network. Backpropagation neural network. Okay, so that is something that has totally changed the scenario or the development of intelligence, especially, you know, by the development from 1975. Okay, so few architectures are there. So here you are having multi-layer architecture. So this is an input buffer layer. You are having the hidden buffer hidden layer, and this is the output layer. So here, how many layers you are having? You are having two layers. You are having, this is a competitive ANN, or this is a MaxNet you are having. Okay, so just to tell, there are these kinds of architecture, and you can see these are all few recurrent architecture. You know, sometimes you are having an element backpropagation. So one thing you have to understand, when I'm talking about backpropagation, you may ask, okay, what is a backpropagation? Basically, when I'm talking about backpropagation neural network, we will just see immediately. You know, it is basically, you know, it tries to backpropagate the error between these hidden layers. That is what it do. But the information flow is unidirectional only. Is it okay? But however, the back propagation of error helps to adjust the weights in the case of back propagation neural network. It is not recurrent. But however, when the output is again fed back to the input, you can see here, this is the input layer. Okay, so finally what is happening? You can see the output from the hidden layer. Each hidden layer you can see, and you can see the output is again fed back to the you are able to see output is again fed back. Okay, it can be either this way or this way, whatever way. So it is having a kind of recurrent architecture. Similarly, Hopfield neural network is also having a recurrent kind of architecture. These are all nothing but your excitation. We call it as input excitation. Okay, so I'm not going much into it. Again, just to explain what you mean by the recurrent. So here you can see recurrence are taking place. You can see you having an input, you are having a decision output. Of course, input layer, hidden layer, output layer is there, and you can see there is a feedback connection. The output is again sent back to the input. So in this manner, what is happening? You are having a recurrent structure is there. The output is again sent back to the input. So this is nothing but called recurrence. Okay, recurrence something is very, very important when it comes to the deep learning neural networks. So here you are able to see these are the identity function I was talking. Binary step activation function means the output will be either 0 or 1. So binary sigmoid means the output will be between 0 or 1. Okay, you will be having something like this. The output will be a continuous one between 0 and 1. So similarly, you are having different kinds of activation function. Of course, these are some of the standard ones. These are some of the standard ones. If you want to have your own activation function, you can also develop for your application. Okay, so these are some of the activation. Generally, if you see most of the places in neural networks, they use sigmoid function. Sigmoid function, as I already told, the output will be between 0 to 1. It's a continuous function. That's all. -1 to 1. Okay, so tan sigmoid means it will be between -1 to 1. You can see this one. This is a tan sigmoid function. You can see the output between -1 to 1. Binary step means 1 and 0. Okay, so similarly you can able to see. So you can have rectified linear unit is there, leaky rectified linear unit is there. But one important thing when it comes to deep learning neural network is a softmax function. Especially it is being used in deep learning neural network to take a decision. It is based on the probability. Okay, is exponential of the input or the sum divided by the sum of all the things. It will be having a values of 0 and 1. 0 to 1. So that is what we call it as softmax function. It has got its own advantages. So some differences I'm just giving where will be some properties of this sigmoid function and the softmax function is there. The calculated properties will be in the range between 0 to 1. The sum of all the probabilities will be equal to 1. So generally the softmax is used in the multiple classification logistic regression model. Okay, so this is softmax. Okay, so okay, so already I was discussing about this. Some advantages are there. So generally we use softmax function when it comes to probability. Okay, so this is an example. You can work it out how you'll be able to get the output. Okay, you can just check it out and you can work it out. You know how you'll get the output from the ordinary neural network. When it comes to feed-forward neural network, one thing you have to understand is that there is no memory about the past. So that is one of the significant or biggest disadvantage when it comes to feed-forward neural network. That is our conventional neural network. Okay, it doesn't have any future scope. That is one of the issues that we are having in the case of feed-forward neural network. You can see here the vectors of input features are there, the predictors are there. So basically you can see here it's a function of y. The output is basically the output is basically function of the summation I already discussed with you plus the bias. So finally you'll be able to get an output. Of course, weights and bias is also there. It will be multiplied or added with that of the inputs. Okay, so this is one thing that you have to understand. So one of the important backpropagation neural network, one of the important neural networks basically is backpropagation neural network. I will just explain because I'm not going to give all kinds of equations and things. I just explain the concept alone. So when it comes to backpropagation neural network, you can see it has got, you can see that it has got the input layer, this ith layer, it has got m nodes you're having jth layer, you're having n nodes, you're having the kth layer, you're having the rth nodes. So these are the weights that is connected between the input layer to the hidden layer. And you can also see from hidden layer to output layer, you are able to see other weights also is there. So basically, if you look at this particular case, you will be having two layers, one layer here and another layer here. So finally, you are having a, the output here also you're having an activation function for each unit you are having. Here also you're having an activation function. Okay, so all these things summed up, and finally you'll get an output over here. So finally you'll be having an output, okay, and a desired. Desired means I already told that is a target. So you're having a source is nothing but your input, and you're having a target, so that is nothing but your desired value. This is nothing but your target, and finally you'll be able to see then the output, the actual output is this one. Okay, so now if I want to find out the error, it is nothing but the output minus the desired one. So you'll get an idea what will be your error. So based upon this error, what we have to do, we have to see that how to minimize this error in such a way that what we have to do, we have to minimize or we have to optimize these weights. So then if you are optimizing these weights, what will happen? The error will be coming down. So that is what we have to do. So basically how it is being done, we have to adjust the weights in such a way to minimize the error. So for that, we have to have different kinds of learning algorithms. What does this learning algorithms do? The learning algorithms try to update these weights such that the error is minimum. So that is what it will try to do. So if you let us try to take an example here, we just pick up how to calculate the weights of the output layer. Okay, so output layer we'll try to see. We just see from hidden layer to the output layer. Okay, so we are having the weights, that is WPQ, that is it is between the hidden layer, this is the hidden layer, and this is your output layer. So we are only bothered about right now the weights between the hidden layer to the output layer, and you try to compare. So generally the error is, we are able to see it is desired minus the output of the function. So that is your output O. Okay, generally you try to take the square, because whenever if you're taking a square, we can try to differentiate it twice so that we can able to get the minimum. So that is one of the advantage you're having when you're trying to take the square. Okay, so but however, when you try to take in this manner, within one differentiation itself, you will come to 0, and it will be very, very difficult. Okay, so generally we go for squared error. So differentiation can be done and we can get the minimum. So generally what we'll do, we will try to, so here you're having the error, so we are generally taking the squared error. Okay, and you can see there is something called learning rate, how fast you will be able to learn. Okay, so that is very, very important. There is always a difference. Okay, so learning is very much important during schooling and during college days. Learning will be very less when you're getting aged. Okay, or early morning you can learn quickly compared to that in the afternoon. The learning rate will be in morning very high and slowly it comes down. Okay, you can see, so learning rate basically, even when you're looking at our own circumstances, it varies. Okay, so now what is that we have to do? We have to find out what should be the change that I have to add or incorporate with the existing weights. That is very, very important. So if I'm trying to, I'm trying to have a relationship between the error square and the weights. So because you already know, if I'm having a control over the error, then I can have a control over the weights. Am I right? Okay, I hope that you understand. If you're having the control over the error, then I can have the control over the weights. Suppose if I want to minimize this error, and I can change the weights, and I can understand whether it is increasing, which suppose if I'm trying to make the weights moving in the opposite direction, in this direction. Suppose if I'm moving the weights, adjusting the weights in this direction, and if the error is increasing, that is not the right way to do. So what I have to do, I have to change the direction of the weight in such a way that I have to minimize the error. So that is very, very important. So how to have a control to the weights? So basically it's very simple. Okay, generally, in I can able to see, especially in schools or even in any private engineering colleges or any management colleges, there will be a owner will be there, or the owner of the institution will be there, or you'll be having a director will be there, or a principal will be there. Then you'll be having head of the department will be there, and you'll be having I'm just coming from the higher level to the lower level, and you'll be having the faculty, then the students. Okay, so let us say that the target of that particular institution is get the university ranks and things like that. Okay, they want to see, they should get the best results, because the competitions is so huge. So what they try to do, they try to give necessary training and all these things. Suddenly, hello, yeah, suddenly what will happen? Hello, yeah. Yeah, sometimes what will happen, the results will come down. Let us say that the results has drastically come down. So what does it happen? Generally, if you look at who is the stakeholders, the stakeholders are basically the students. Okay, if I'm able to improve the performance of the students, automatically the performance of the institution will also increase. So basically, what will happen, the owner will tell, or he will try to give some scoldings to the director. The director will give the scoldings to the, or the principal will give scoldings to the or HOD. The HOD will fire the the faculty, and finally the faculty and the students will be like a drum. Okay, beating on both the sides. Okay, so finally the faculty has to teach the students and improve the performance. Of course, the students also has to learn. Okay, this is a very tricky position and very difficult position for the faculty. So here also the same thing is happening. My aim is error. I have to somehow minimize the error, but I have to control the weights. If you really look into the diagram, you can see here, if I want to if I want to change the weights. Okay, so first you can see it here. We can try to have, so you can try to modify the same equation like this. Okay, now the error is directly related to the activation function output. The activation function output is related to its sum, and the sum is related to the weights. Okay, somehow you can see some kind of a relationship, you are able to get it. So what is doing, if I want to control the error as is being related to the the function, output of the function, or the activation function. The output of the activation function is depending upon the sum, and the sum is depending upon the weight. So you can see a chain, you can see here. So in this manner, what I can do, I can try to fill up these values, and these values, and I may say something kind of chain connection, so that I will be able to get the value. So that is del change in weights I will be having, and I will try to add up with the previous weights. So this is the old one. Okay, this is the change in weights that I have to add it, and this is nothing but your new weights. New weights has to be added, or the new weights are being updated in such a way that the error is minimized. So that is very, very important. So here the same thing is happening. If you look at the equations, you can see it like this. It's not only from hidden layer to the output layer, it has to even come from, suppose how to modify the weights between input layer to the hidden layer. Input layer you're having, hidden layer you're having, and you're having output layer you're having. So hidden layer to input layer, you've done it. So similarly, you should also update the weights between the input layer to the hidden layer. So you have to come from the back. Okay, so you can see dou E square by dou FQK, dou FQQK by dou sum QK, dou sum QK by dou of PJ. So this is the activation function. FPQK is activation function at the output layer, and FPGA is nothing but the output, or the output from the activation function of the hidden layer. Okay, so you can see how it is being connected, and DFPJ is related to D sum K, and D sum is related to HP, so that we'll be able to update the weights from the input layer to the hidden layer. In this manner, we can try to have a kind of algorithm. So generally, we want to find out the gradient, error gradient. We have to find out. We have to ensure that we will get the error gradient. Based upon the error gradient, we have to see how, in what direction we have to change the weights. So that is what all these gradient descent algorithms are doing. So you can see one important thing in feed forward neural network is, here, suppose the change in weights is very less. If you keep on doing this iteration again and again and again, what will happen? Sometimes the effect of this change, the effect will not be much. Okay, or it can also happen, sometimes the change in weight will become so small. Okay, it will become so small and it doesn't have any effect on the new weights. So that is generally we call it as vanishing gradient. We call it as vanishing gradient. So this is a problem that we are having in these kinds of conventional neural network, vanishing gradient. At the same time, there is something called exploding gradient. What do you mean by exploding gradient? Exploding gradient means what will happen? The weights will become so high. It will be greater than 1, or it will become so big such that the the meaning of it doesn't have a proper reinforcement. The meaning of this updation itself will collapse. So that is called the exploding gradient. So that we will be seeing in the this problem is there in the recurrent neural network, which is taken care by the deep learning neural network, especially in the LSTM, and we call long short-term memory neural network, or we call it as gated recurrent unit neural network. Okay, so this way we'll try to understand vanishing gradient and exploding gradient. This is something very, very important. So why not feed forward network? So you can see here, in the case of feed forward network, there is no relationship between the output and the previous output. So that is a problem. Whatever you give the data, it will just train it and give it to you. Okay, the previous output and the present output, it doesn't have any kind of relation. So that is one of the biggest problem in the case of your conventional feed forward neural network. So that's why we are going for some kind of a recurrent neural network. Okay, so no relationship is there. So this is one aspect. So but however, these where these kind of applications are there. Suppose you see you're giving an input t plus 1, the output also you're getting a t plus 1. So you can see the output. Suppose you try to read, I can have a meaningful kind of understanding if I'm having a proper continuity between the first page and the second page. The problem is that we sometimes jump in between and go, so we may not be able to understand, or even when you try to get a product, we will not read it properly, catalog. Now we will not sequentially we will read it because we don't have time. That is one issue, but we'll keep on jump into the pages. So the learning is not proper and the understanding is also not proper. Sometimes we miss. The same thing happening in feed forward neural network also. There is no relation between the previous outputs. So it is totally independent of your previous output. That is a problem we are having in the feed forward neural networks. But however, you can see it here. Suppose we are going for these kind of neural network, deep learning neural networks. You can see, this is an image. Okay, so for example, you take it, it will have a context. Okay, by looking at this ball, can you say the ball is going up or ball is rising, or whether the ball is falling? Okay, so that is very, very important. When we try to use neural network, we should try to understand the context and then we should able to train it. So that is one important advantages of neural network. So here we are not sure whether the ball is going up or whether the ball is going down. So what is important is that when you're going for training, we should always try to look at in terms of the context. That is very, very important. So sequences, that is what I'm talking about, is time series signals. The time series signals are basically sequence. It can be heterogeneous or it can be homogeneous. But one thing is sure, the each point is related to its previous point. Okay, so that is very, very important. So if it is t, it is t minus 1. T minus 1 is dependent upon t minus 2. T minus 2 is dependent upon t minus 3. So in this manner, you can have some kind of a relationship. Even when it comes to temperature reading, there are so many examples. Okay, I'm not going with all kinds of examples because of the time lag. So you can see there are so many types of examples you're having. Okay, so one of the traditional problem, as I already told, it doesn't have any memory. Okay, so what is that? When we try to look at the neural network initially, it is having only one neuron. Okay, we call it as a neuron. The problem with this neuron is, these are all basically units. We say these are all basically units. These units doesn't have any memory. It just process, it gets some inputs from all these, it gets input, it sum up, and finally gives an output. That is what these units will do. It doesn't have any kind of memory, internal memory to remember. It doesn't have in the case of the neuron. So that is the problem in the conventional neural network. It doesn't have any memory. So that is why it is poor at using the context. Okay, so which is a successful of this deep learning neural network. You try to give lot of inputs to this deep learning neural network. Okay, it will try to find out its own story. You give, let us assume, you must be knowing lot of good stories you'll be having. You give your own version. I will give the same story in a different version. Another person will give the same story in a different version. It collects all these versions, and finally it will able to give its own version of story. So that is the beauty of this deep learning neural networks. That is why we are nowadays having, just we are having Alexa. Alexa is something, I think at least few people may be using it. Alexa, sing that song. It will immediately try to get it. It'll try to sing that song. Okay, that is how the intelligence are coming into picture. Okay, slowly, we are not able to understand whether we are really talking to a person or a machine. To that level, it has come. Okay, you go to Amazon Music. Is there? I'm having my mobile. If I say you sing a Tamil song, you sing a Hindi song, you sing an English song from this particular film, and this is the song, means it immediately within few seconds it is able to sing that song. Okay, so that is the same thing that is going to happen. Even let it be a stories, even it can, it's not necessary that you get all the musical notes from different places and try to have your own kind of the machine learning will give machine, or the machines will be able to give its own tuning. Okay, it get all the data and it tries to get its own tuning. That is why data are becoming very, very important. People are even ready to steal our data for big businesses, so that they will know what kind of what is that they are trying to search. Okay, Amazon, Flipkart, Reliance Digital, Tata Click, all these things, they are data savvy. They want our data. All these, they try to see by giving some offers, and they try to get your data. They'll try to see how much amount is there in your bank, so that whether he is capable of buying that product or not. So then only they have to go and advertise to that person. So all these things are, these days it is becoming more data savvy. Okay, I'm not going to that much stories and things like that. So all these things I just explained. So only thing is that, all these things has some kind of a recurring action. So that is very, very important. Okay, so now coming back, I already told in the previous neural network, that is a conventional neural network, where we are having a neuronal unit, it doesn't have any memory. So now we understood that if any unit in a neural network, if it has got some memory, in a way that we can try to relate some kind of, sequence inputs or sequence data points. So that is very, very important. So here you are having a recurrent unit cell. So let us try to understand what you meant by a recurrent unit. A basic artificial neuron, this is very, very important. You should not confuse. The basic artificial neuron does not have any memory, but you try to see that in a recurrent cell, okay, there is an internal memory. You can see this diagram. They are having an input, Okay, so this is the recurrent neural network unit. So you're having an output. So one thing that you're able to see is that some kind of an internal memory, this recurrent unit is there. Whenever you're having these kinds of units, when connected together, it becomes a deep learning neural networks. It has got so many layers. Okay, so one advantage is that it has got some kind of each unit has got some kind of a internal memory. So that is where the conventional neural network and the deep learning neural network has its difference. So that is you have to understand this internal information we generally call as the state of the unit. Okay, so it saves some kind of an information. Okay, so this also you have to understand. So there are a lot of recurrent layers. Okay, all these things are there. Okay, slowly I'm coming back. State, already told it is the internal information. State, or we can sometimes call it as the remembered data. Okay, so in generally the recurrent neural network, we also already had this recurrent neural network, but however it has got some of the disadvantage that is being taken care effectively in the deep learning neural network. So let us slowly try to understand with an example how this recurrent neural network is coming into picture when we talk in terms of deep learning, machine learning, all these things. Okay, so you're having a robot here. Okay, the robot is there. Okay, so this robot, the job of the robot is to repair your phones. Okay, your mobile phone or something like that. So certain parts are there. It's basically a cabinet where it has got all kinds of tools to fix it. So these are the parts it is having. Okay, and you're having, okay, this is a broken phone. You can see here, this is the broken phone. Okay, so what does it do? Okay, the robot's parts supply its state or persistent information. The robot has already got it some information. Okay, so what does it do? How this process will take place? Okay, the robots will be sit near to the cabinet. If he plays a broken cell phone, what it will do? It try to fix it. What it takes some tools from the parts. Okay, it takes some tools from the parts, it repair it, and again place it back to the parts. So that is what happening. The first case is the robot, the parts are given to the robot. Okay, and the broken phone is also taken by the robot. After the repair, this is the first stage, and this is nothing but your second stage. In the second stage, what is happening? The robot again places the tools back into the whatever it is needed it taken, and it also keep back these parts back to the cabinet, and then it gives back the repaired phone. So this is a kind of sequence that you are having. Okay, the same thing we are trying to understand with respect to the recurring kind of activity. So let us try to understand. It's a slight cosmetic change that we are trying to do. So here, the direction is being changed. Instead of separately, instead of this direction, we are taking this and putting it at this side. So that is what we are trying to do. We are taking this thing and putting it this side. So it is a two activity that we are having. So here the first stage, okay, and the second stage. Only thing is that part was initially at this position. Now you taken and put it at this position. So this is the first stage and this is the second stage. These are two events that is taking place. Now what is being done? I am just try to combine both this one and the two. So what is happening? The combination, you're able to get it here. So this is the parts. Okay, and you can see the broken phone is sent in. This is a repaired phone, and finally you are able to get the part. So you can definitely see something is happening. That is, this in the information over initially, this information is not the same information where you are having here. Both the things are different. There is some kind of changes are there in this one. So it is something like a sequence. You are able to see some kind of sequence. So now let us try to understand. If you try to put it into a series of three different broken phones, what is happening? Okay, the first phone is being sent in. Okay, the first phone is sent in. The parts is there. The robot is there. Repaired phone is 0. The parts is again kept in. The second phone is sent in. The robot works with the parts. Okay, now it has changed and it has given back the phone number 1. So similarly, you can see it is the same thing is happening again and again. Okay, but you can see at every point of time some kind of information is modified and you can see some kind of work is taken place. So this is something that you have to understand, this concept you have to understand. So I'm trying to relate the same thing with the help of our recurrent neural network. So you're having the parts. So parts is nothing but the state. Okay, so this is the state. I already told the state is a one that is not available, that is an internal memory, is not available in the conventional neuron. Okay, so you're able to see here the parts and you can see how it is changing. Okay, so you're having an input 0, you're having an output 0, you're having an RNN unit with a state. So you can see a kind of recurring action taking place just by looking at this particular diagram. Okay, so now slowly come back to the structure of the RNN. Okay, so if you look at the structure of the RNN, you can see here, this is the state, this is the input, this is output, this is the state. You can see here, this is the structure of an RNN cell is very important. So you're giving an info. I'm just again trying to make you understand with information flow diagram. So this is the one. Okay, this is the one you are having information flow diagram. You're having an input. Okay, you're having an input. Okay, to the node. Okay, so what is happening? You are having an output. The output is again, okay, sent to this node again with a delay. There is something called a delay here. This is nothing but a delay. We are just representing a delay. So what is happening? There is some kind of change in the internal memory. There is some kind of a change in the internal memory. So this is particular activity is continuously taking place. So that is what we call it as a recurring action. Recurring action. So this is very, very important. So you're having an input. Okay, the output is there and you're having the output is again fed back to the state and it comes back to the the unit. So this is a recurring action. So now you let us try to see here. No, I know that I'm a bit fast, but I want to put everything within this 90-minute slot. Okay, so here you can see here how many weights are there in this particular unit. So you're having an input to the unit. This is a unit you're having. Okay, this is a RNN unit. Okay, this is an RNN unit you're having and this is the input. So between input and the RNN unit you're having an input unit. This is the first weights that you are having. Okay, and between the unit and the output you are having an output unit. This is the second weight you are having. And whenever you're trying to have a feedback, another unit is there. That is nothing but we are trying to update the weight. So this is another thing that you have to understand with a delay. So three things you have to understand. You're having an input weight, you're having an output weight, and you're having an update weight. Okay, so this is what input weight. It gives you the strength between the input and the node, and output weight gives the strength between the output, the node and the output. And you can see the recurrent kind of action here. It gives you the internal memory of the unit. So this is what that makes the difference between the conventional neuron and the RNN. So the same thing I'm trying to explain. Slowly you'll be able to understand this one. So I'm just representing with an icon. Okay, so just the structure alone. So you're having input, output 0, input 1, output 1, input 2, output 2. This is the initial state. So this is a recurrent neural network you are having. So this is the input vector you are having. This is the output vector, x of t, y of t, and h of t. H of t is nothing but your new state. So let us try to understand the recurrence relation. In a recurrence relation is something important. So new state is nothing but it is a function of old state and input vector at time state t. ht minus 1 is nothing but your old. Okay, so new state is nothing but the function of the old state and the input vector at time step t. So you're able to, if you give a feedback, if you give an input vector x of t, you're able to get an output vector y of t. So this is the new state that we are able to get it. So this is a recurrent unit that we are having. This is a recurrence relation. So this relation, we'll try to use it in our computation. So this is something that is important. So you can see how instead of that function, you can use tan sigmoidal function. We already seen different kinds of functions we have seen. So you can have tan. Tan means what? The output will be between 1. So this is nothing but your tan sigmoidal function. Or in MATLAB, if you say, you can use tan sig. Okay, this is tan h function basically. So it is output will be either, it will be between, it is a continuous, it is not discontinuous, it is a continuous value between -1 and 1. So you will be able to get the new state. Okay, but however, if you look at this yt, how you'll be able to understand, it is nothing but it is why into ht. So this is your output vector. Like ht we know, ht we got it. Okay, whh plus this is what wxh. What is wxh? It is this weight. Wxh is here. Okay, this is hy is also there. We will be multiplying this hy into this ht, so that you will be able to get y of t. So y of t and h of t, you are able to get it. Okay, so this also you have to understand. So this is a kind of recurring action that is taking place. So you are having x of t, x naught, okay, xhh, this is why, this is whh, okay, and you're able to get an output. So generally you're having a loss. Okay, loss basically, we'll try to sum up and find out the loss, or it is the objective function that we are having. It can be an error or error square. We want to minimize the error square. In the previous case, when it comes to backpropagation neural network, we had an error square. Okay, so error square is basically the loss. Okay, of course you can try to have different kinds of error indices. For example, you can have root mean square error, absolute mean square error. So many things are there. But when I'm trying to say loss, it is nothing but the loss, the actual loss of that particular function. We want to minimize that error function. That error function is basically nothing but we minimizing that error function. Okay, that is nothing but your loss. So that error we call it as a loss. Okay, so here we are having the loss. Okay, so we have to, so this kind of recurring action is taking place when it comes to recurrent neural network. Okay, so now let us try to understand example. Okay, so here if you see this is basically a language modeling. Okay, so here you are able to see 0001 wh. Okay, so we are trying to represent the cat chase mouse with 0 0 0 0 0 1. So some kind of representing there's 0001, cat as 0010, and chased as 0100, and there's 0001. So when you try to multiply it, you're having all these weights you're having. Okay, this is hidden weight, this is output weight, this is your input weight you're having. So finally you're able to get an output something like this. Okay, so if I give there, immediately I'm getting what is cat. But actually it will takes place, we are trying to use certain kinds of softmax function to understand the probability, or we can try to use some function where we'll try to identify. So here basically you're getting an output as 1.7, but however what is expected is cat, but we are having 1.7. As we progress, this is for the, let us assume that this is for the first iteration. As we progress, slowly you can see this will improve, so that you will be able to get the right kind of output. So this is technically, if you see that this is an error, this is not correct, because if I give the actual understanding is that the mouse is coming, but when you try to do the kind of iterations and learning, slowly what will happen, this 1.3 will increase, and the output will be predicted as cat. So the cat chase the mouse. If you give there, immediately it will come as cat. If you give cat as input, it gives us chase. If I give chase as input, the output will be mouse. In this manner, even we can try to do the language modeling. Okay, so I just given the explanation all over here. So there are different types of deep learning neural networks. It's basically vanilla network. We'll say 1-to-1. We'll be having input 1 and output is also 1. You can see here, this is the input, this is the output. Okay, this is the unit, this is the recurrent unit you are having. So this is a vanilla network. Vanilla neural network is a already you are having Jordan recurrent neural network. So it is also having some kind of a delay. But one problem with this, it is having a very limited short-term memory. So that is a problem with the case of Jordan recurrent neural network. It's fast to train, can be parallelized. Parallel algorithms also you can use, but it has got some non-linear effects and some information is being distorted. So, but however, Jordan has done this developed the recurrent neural network in 1986 itself. So Elman neural network, the same issues. Sometimes it is also referred as a vanilla RNN. Again, it has got its own issues when it comes to training. Okay, this is done in 1990. So these are all different types of recurrent neural network. So this can be used for image captioning, image to sequence of words. Okay, one to many, 1-to-1. Okay, one to many. Okay, if you give an input, okay, you can try to get that particular image, or many to one. Okay, the sentiment classification, by getting all kinds of input features, you will be able to get whether he is happy or sad or angry. This is sentiment classification. So many to many. Okay, machine translation is there. You can convert Hindi to English, or Tamil to Hindi, anything you can do. So that is from many to many. Okay, so machine translation is also there. So many to many. So all these things are possible when it comes to recurrent neural networks. So come back to the recurrent neural network. I already discussed about its issues. Okay, so especially in the recurrent neural, basically we call in terms of back propagation through time, because already I told forward pass and backward pass. Forward pass means we try to compute from layer to layer and we'll finally get the output. The backward pass is basically we try to the error is back propagated and weights are being updated. So that is the one that is taking place in backward pass. So here you can see the kind of recurrence that is taking place. It is basically back propagation through time. So already I was explaining you about certain kinds of issues that we face when it comes to these kind of gradient kind of updation. So one is exploding gradient. How it can be. So you can see it will become greater than 1. Computing the gradient H0 involves many factors. Sometimes vanishing gradient means the weight values will become very, very less. It doesn't have any effect. Okay, so all these things can be sorted out. Exploding gradient can be effectively sorted out by gradient clipping. Sometimes even when we try to update weights, we try to keep the boundaries. The upper boundary and lower boundary. So whatever updation is there, we try to minimize within this particular region only. So we try to clip it. So exploding gradient can be solved by gradient clipping, and vanishing gradient, there is no effect. Okay, even if you keep on adding some kind of change in weight, it can be sorted out by choosing the proper kind of activation function, proper kind of weight initialization, and by modifying the network architecture. So that is possible. So weight initialization is one thing that is okay. When it comes to activation function, sometimes you can use ReLU function. ReLU function, network architecture, already I was going to discuss about LSTM and GRU. So these kinds of things we can use and we can try to solve the problem. So this is what we have, vanishing gradient. So you can see it here. The change in weight dE by dW will become lesser and lesser than 1. So when the change in weight becomes lesser and lesser than 1, there is no meaning, there is no training is taking place. So that is what we call it as vanishing gradient. The error is basically actual output minus the model output. Model output is nothing but the target or the desired. So that is what you have to understand. So this is vanishing gradient. The another one just opposite to it, when d by dw becomes very high, then it becomes exploding gradient. So these two problems we are able to see in these things. So one thing is that by using ReLU function, so this is an activation function we can use, so you can, it prevents f dash from shrinking the gradient when x greater than 0. If you slowly go and try to understand, you'll definitely able to get it, so that this way you can try to sort out. Okay, another one is parameter initialization. We try to initialize the weight matrix by the identity matrix. So what will happen, this helps prevent the weights from shrinking to 0. So this is another thing way that you can try to minimize the this gradient problems. And another one is you can use some complex architecture like the gated cells, that is LSTM and GRU, which is very well used in the case of time series prediction. So exploding gradient can be solved using truncated BTT or clip gradient, RMS probe. These are some of the methods. Vanishing gradient by ReLU function, RMS probe. These are certain kinds of methods where they try to solve these kinds of gradient problem. One is exploding gradient, another one is vanishing gradient. Okay, so please go through it. Coming back to the LSTM. So LSTM is it's basically called long short-term memory. So you can see it here. It has certain kinds of gate mechanism you're having. Gate open, 75% of the gate open. Just think about it is a gate. 50%, 25%, and 0%. Okay, these are the gates. And if you see that, how much percentage a gate can be open. So keeping it as 1. Okay, 1 into 100. You let 100 be the input. If I multiply 1 into 100, you're getting 100. We are having some kind of a control, a valve kind of control. Let us assume this is a valve control. 0.75 into 100, you're getting 75%. So in this way, we can try to control the information that is coming out of this unit. So this is one gate. Just think about a gate valve, so you'll be able to understand. So when you try to look at the LSTM model, there are 3 types of gates. One is forgetting gate, remembering gate, and selecting gate. This is a beautiful thing that you're having. Sometimes in life, we have to forget certain things and we have to remember only those things which are really good. Otherwise, it is going to be a fatal. Okay, that is a problem. So many things are happening, suicides and all these things. Sometimes if certain bad things are there, put some good information, you renew your mind so that you only select the right kind of information and you remember it. So maybe that is why the person who developed this LSTM is able to say that this deep learning neural network is very, very successful. One, you have to forget the things that is not good. You have to remember only the things that is very important. Okay, and you have to choose the right thing and good things, and you can put it in your brain. So maybe that's why LSTM is really good. Okay, so forgetting, remembering, and selecting. So generally, the remember gate and the select gates are called as input gate and output gate. Okay, the remember and select gate are called input gate and output gate. So there are 3 types of gates. How it is being done, let us try to understand. Because I told in each unit, it should have some kind of a memory. That is why these deep learning neural networks are very, very successful. So you can see this is a starting memory you're having. This is a gates you're having. So let us try to understand. Okay, so now what about this 16 into 0.25? How much you're getting? 16 into 0.5. How you're getting this 4? 16 into 0.25, you're getting 4. Yeah, 16 you're getting 4. 8 into 0, you're getting 0. This is basically the valve control. This part is basically your valve control. This is a starting memory. By properly this particular thing is basically your forgetting gate. Forgetting values in the memory. Unnecessary things you just forget it. Bad things you forget it. Only you always have positivity in mind. Okay, so you multiply this one, this one, this one. Automatically what will happen? You're able to get a new memory 4, 0, 25, 32, and 8. So this is the structure of this particular gate. This we call it as forgetting gate. So forgetting gate is one thing that is already, it is available in the LSTM. So next one is remembering gate. What is this remembering gate? Remembering gate is nothing but your input gate. Okay, remembering gate is nothing but your input gate. So this is your input gate. It's a remembering gate. You have to remember that remembering gate means it is input gate. Only you have to remember those things which is necessary. All the filthy things you remove. Okay, so you're having new values, you're having gates, and you can see how it is being there. So so here also you'll be able to see 8 into 0.5, you're having 4. So this one you're doing it like this, and finally you're having the gated new values. This is a starting memory. Okay, so here 4 plus 16, 20, 3 plus 8, 11, 2 plus 50, 52, 0 plus 32, you're having 32. The operation can be anything. 6 and 10, it is 16. So in a way, what you are trying to do, we are trying to add the gated values. That is what you are doing. So what we have done is, here we are basically adding. Here we are done is adding. So when you're adding these values, you're able to get a new state of memory. Again, the state is modified and you're able to get a new state of memory. So in the first case, what you're done, multiplying. In the second case, you try to add. When you multiply, we try to forget. When you add, we try to remember. So these two gates are over. Another gate what you are having is selection gate. Selection gate is another gate. All these three gates are available in the in this thing. So memory you are having, gates you are having, selected value you are having. 16 you are having. So here what you are trying to do. So you can see at 16 into how much you are getting. 16. So you are having 8 into 0 is 0. 5 into how you are getting what you are doing here. So here we are having 16 into maybe 10. You can see 10 into 0.4 you are getting 4. 32 into 0.25 you are getting 8. 50 into 0.5 you are getting 25. 8 into 0 you are getting 0. 16 into 0.5 you are getting 12. So this is how you are going to select. This is another gate you are having. Okay, so finally I'm putting all these things together. Okay, you're having the forgetting gate, you're having the remembering gate, you're having, and you're having the, what is this gate? You're able to select gate is also there. So you're having an input, you're having a previous output. Just think about that robot and the phone. So this is a previous output, this is an input. Okay, and this is your output. You see this. So all these three things you are there in the case of LSTM. So now you can see here. So this is the each state you're able to see. One is forgetting. The second one is okay, forgetting. This one remembering. Okay, I think this one is selecting, I think. So this is remembering, or this one forgetting. Okay, you can see this one. So but anyhow you have to understand that all these things are available. So here you're having the, yes, I think this slide is gone. Here it is selecting. So all these stages are there. So all these three combinedly you are able to get the the LSTM model. So here LSTM, all these things are explained here. So what we try to do, one more thing you have to understand, a small change we are trying to do, a small variation in the LSTM will make it as gated recurrent unit. So gated recurrent unit is what we are trying to do. We are trying to combine this forgetting gate, and we try to combine the forget gate and input gate into a single gate, and then what will happen, the LSTM works similar to GRU. Okay, so the difference in architecture is not much. Only thing is that when I'm talking about gated recurrent unit, here what we try to do, we are trying to combine the forget gate and the input gate so that you'll be able to get the GRU. Okay, but the performance varies. Sometimes LSTM will perform better than GRU. Sometimes GRU will perform better than LSTM. However, it's based upon trial and error. Based upon experience for a particular application, we can say that whether LSTM is good or GRU is good. So I just given an idea. These are all the same thing again and again. Different cell state is there. Time restrictions I am cutting short. This output layer, all these things are there. So you can see all the structures already that I explained. Okay, so these are all the structures you are having. This is a deep recurrent neural network. Each unit is an LSTM. Each unit is an LSTM unit. That is what you have to understand. Each unit is an LSTM. All the things are connected. So that is the beauty that you are having. Each unit is your LSTM. So you're also having bidirectional also. Bidirectional LSTMs also is there. You can see it here. This is a big diagram. So you can see you can also give the input from here. Also you can give the input from there. So it's a bidirectional LSTM. So different kinds of models are there when it comes to LSTM. So I given you a very brief idea about this LSTM. So though I don't know whether I can take some more time. So coming back to the forecasting, okay, I'm not going much into forecasting. I'll directly go to the thing. So generally, what we try to do, we try to forecast the electricity pricing. Electricity pricing means, basically, this electricity is being, nowadays sold as a product. Okay, though it is constantly varying, now it has been sold as a commodity. It's not just tomato or potato, all these things stored in vegetable market. And again, as you know, the price keeps on varying based upon the demand and supply. Similarly, in Indian Energy Exchange, if you go to the the site IEX, okay, you'll be able to see how the electricity prices keep on varying. Okay, sometimes each state has to purchase from it. Okay, so they'll say this much amount you have to pay, or it's based upon some tender and bidding, they will try to do it. Suppose if I want to make a good tender, and if I want to win the tender, I want to bid in such a way that I want to see that how close I am able to forecast to that of the market clearing price. Okay, something like a cake, you've seen some games, where we try to tell the weights of the cake. One person will come, he will tell what is the weight of the cake. It's a game. Okay, he will tell 1 kg, another person will 1.2, another person will 0.9. Finally, who will be the winner? The one who is able to tell a weight which is closer to the weight of the cake is a winner. So similarly, when you're trying to bid, they have to bid in such a way that how close they are to that of the market clearing price. So no, I'm not going much into the problem formulation and things like that, but I will directly go to the data because of lack of time. One thing I want to tell is that just like that, you'll be having different kinds of suppliers will be there. Okay, and buyers also will be there. How this market clearing is placed is basically some kind of you will be having a supply curve will be aggregated, and you will be also having a buyer curve. Finally, the meeting point is nothing but your market clearing price. So what I'm trying to do, if I'm able to forecast market clearing price very accurately, then I'll be able to bid very nicely, or I'll be having a chances for proper bidding. As a buyer, I can bid it and I can try to win the tender. So that is why we are more important. That is why it's very important in order to forecast. So you're having purchase bid data, you're having, this is a market snapshot of 2014 data, sell bid, volume, market clearing volume, cleared volume, market clearing price. So right now I am only trying to take market clearing price alone. Okay, only this part alone I am trying to take it, and I am trying to show it in MATLAB. Okay, so only I'm going to take only one feature. I'm not taking all the feature. So my historical data will be a signal. Generally, if you see load curve and the price curve, the load curve is homogeneous. Mostly it will be homogeneous, but the price curve is not that homogeneous. It's almost looking like heterogeneous. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to go to the the MATLAB, and I'm trying to do the prediction. Okay, just give me 5 times, just 5 minutes to show you how it can be predicted. So I will just share my MATLAB screen. I'm just going to this one. I'm trying to share my MATLAB screen. Is a MATLAB screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So
Yes,
I collected all the data here. Okay. I collected all the data here. So basically I'm trying to forecast the forecasting. Okay. I am using an LSTM tool. You can do Python programming. All the programs are already available in the open source. Okay. But however, I thought that I'll just use a simple, I'll just tell you how it can be worked out. So this is basically a LSTM tool already available. So these are some of the data I'm having. Okay. I just put it's a 1 year data, maybe December 13 to November 14 data. Each month I'm having a data. So for hourly data means you take it 30 into 30 into 24 into 7, you will be having 720 samples per month. You will be able to get it. So you can think about it. All the data I put it in one matrix, full matrix I put for all the 12 months. Okay, so forget about all these data, only those interested I'm taking. So what I did, I've just taken the data, only 4 weeks data alone I taken. I reshaped. Okay, so I'm able to take only 4 weeks data just to tell you how it can be predicted, how it can be forecasted. Okay, so this is hourly period. Suppose if I'm giving the present hour data, I'll be able to get the next hour predicted value. I'll be able to get it. So it is not for 24 hours simultaneously. I'm not going to forecast. I am just going to forecast what will be the next instant. That is what I'm going to do it. That is, if it is T, I am going to tell you what will be the hourly price at T plus 1. That is what I'm going to do here. That is why I'm telling that this one model is basically hourly forecasting. I taken 4 weeks data. You can see it here. I taken 4 weeks data I taken. So hourly period I'm having, market clearing price of the Indian Energy Exchange I taken. So I'm just taken 6.7. I should take 647, but I've taken 647 just for programming convenience. So I'm having I've just taken data train. This is the total training data I taken, and this is nothing but your testing data. Okay, the last week data alone I'm using it for testing. So when I'm training, 1:648 plus 1 means 647 plus 1, it will be 648. Okay, so if I'm you can calculate it, and you can always see 647 means 647 plus 1, 648. And the test data I'm giving, I'm able to give the test data, so that if I'm giving it as a feed input as a test, then I'll be able to get the output. So I'm trying to normalize the values. Smoothing the data is always good. Okay, this is the X train. X train is nothing but, you can see the one is to n minus 1. Okay, the another one is 2 into n. That means I'm trying to train the instances such that the instances at t, I am trying to map it with t plus 1. So that is what I'm trying to do it here. So here I'm having X train and Y train. So here the number of input feature is 1, number of output is also 1, and you can have as many layers as possible. So here you can see the way this is being done. LSTM layer, you're having layer 1, layer 2, and layer 3. So number of hidden units 1, number of hidden units 2, and number of hidden. You can keep on change this one. Right now I just kept it as 555. So how many layers you're having? I'm having 3 layers. I'm having in each 3 layer, I'm having how many hidden units? One I'm taken. I've taken 5 hidden units in hidden layer 1. In hidden layer 2, I've taken 5, and in hidden layer 3 also I've taken 5. So I'm able to take it like this. I just set all these parameters. Epochs I've taken. That is a set of the training. So the training whole batch I'm taking it as epochs. So and I can display it you know, by 250, after 250, you can able to see the displaying. Okay, so you can all these things you can check it out, and you know, finally I'm able to give you the predicted value. Y prediction is also there. Again, I am you know, denormalizing it so that I'll be able to get actual data, and I had also plotted it. So I'll just run this program so that you will get an idea. So what I will do, I don't know whether it is okay. I'll just running the thing. You can just, I'm just running it. Now it's running. That's running is taking some time because it's a 3-layer now. One problem is that, you know, whenever we are giving more data and more layers, the time taken for processing will be very, very high. That is why people are doing, like, you know, in Google, they are using the cloud computing and all these things. They are doing it. Okay. So one problem is that we'll feed all the data into that. That is one thing. So it is just taking its own time. Yeah, you can see this is the plot that I'm having it here. You can see here. You can see the first plot. This is the training that is taking place. Already I told loss. Okay, this is the minimization of the error function. Error function loss you're having. This is a root mean square error. Root mean square error will tell you how spread is with the regression line. You know how these data points are spread with the regression line, and this is basically loss will always focus at the outcome. Okay, so root mean square error is there, the loss is also there. So I think I given up to 250, maximum iteration is given as 250. Okay, iterations per epoch is
we are not able to see the plot, sir.
Why? It's just running. I don't know whether any problem with the
plot screen is not available. On the program screen we can able to see.
Okay. Maybe I don't know. Okay, maybe I have to give that screen alone.
Yeah, yes, you maximize that plot screen, sir.
I'll just check it up. You're able to see this? No.
No, sir. Only with the program screen we can able to see.
So if I minimize it, what I'll just try to minimize the program screen. Now you're able to see? No. You're able to see or not?
No, sir. No. The
Then
program
I'll
screen only.
Yeah, I'll just close it, and again I'll try to share it. Yeah. So this is basically the.
Yeah, yes, sir. Now we can able to see plot.
Yeah, but this is the, you know, training data. Okay.
Okay.
This is basically the training data, and this one you're able to see now. No. So training is still going on. So this one I will minimize it, and again I will close it, and I will again share the, because. So now I think you can see the training.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now
At every iteration you can see the convergence is taking place. However, with proper selection of these architecture parameters, you will be able to see the training. And finally, I will also show you the results. Okay, I'll just close this one, and again I will share the. Yeah, so this is another figure that you're able to see now.
Yes, yes, yes.
So this is basically the market clearing price. Okay, and this one how we have forecasted, but I can also show another one. Okay, figure 2. Again, I'll just close it because of the lag of timing only. I am. So if you see here, it's I think now you'll get an idea. You can see here the last part of the, this is 24 hours. I don't know whether I can make it big.
Yes, sir.
You can see.
Sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I think then it is okay. Then I'm happy. So you can see here, it's Yeah, this is basically for 24 hours. I'm trying to. You can see here how it is coming. Okay, so you are able to do it like this. So you can forecast hourly. Every instant you can. If I'm giving the present hour, I will be able to get the future hour. So this is what you are able to see in LSTM, and I'm not able to explain much because of the time lag. Okay, already I started late by 15 minutes, so I'm just trying to wind up right now. Okay, so I hope that you got some idea, because everything cannot be put into within 90 minutes slot, but some kind of idea. I hope that you got it. I started from the biological neural network and I ended with deep learning neural network. I think from where we started and where we ended till deep learning neural networks, and I also able to show some kind of simulation to tell that possibility that you can do it. Okay, so I'm stopping it right now. If you're having any doubts, you can ask.
Huge potential is there. Extremely nice present.
Yeah, huge potential is there. Okay, so I think you can all work in this area. One problem with these things is that the computational burden. That is why people are using this one in Google itself. You can do now Google computation directly. You can online computation itself. You can do in clouds. You can do. Okay, but you can do a lot of things. See, the only even I will tell my students, why can't you develop your own unit like LSTM and GRU? See, only thing is that you have to put good things into that new. You have to remember good things. You have to forget bad things, and you have to select the right things. That's all. That is the LSTM unit. Okay. Other than this, nothing else, right? So I feel that if you can really modify that unit, okay, even we can come up with new units and new connections. I don't think that only thing is that we have to we should not be lazy, okay, and we should uh, do some hard work. Okay, so I'm stopping it right now. If you're having any, because already taken 90 minutes slot. I think I started at 12 o'clock. I winded up at 1:30. Okay, I'm fast enough to finish it. Thank you. I'm stopping.
Extremely great insight to all the members. Very nicely presented, thoroughly nice. Thank you.
Only thing is that
Yes, sir.
I'm not slow. I'm very fast. That is a problem.
Yes.
I know that I am in jet speed, but it's okay. No problem. It will be useful for some people. That is.
They are able to clearly, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See.
Dr. Suman, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, Dr. Suman, at one place,
Yeah.
you were computing that is a back propagation. There
Yeah.
you have taken the bi cap equal to WH by and H something. So my point is here, you are approximating the output, or that is the real output. That is my point. That is the once it is computed output, it is the mathematical expression. So why you are taking as a approximation, that is bi cap or estimate output?
Sir, it's not clear, sir. Some kind of echoing is taking place. Maybe some can you?
One place you have taken the estimated output by cap.
Sir, it's breaking.
By cap equal to WHI into HT. So why you are taking the estimated output once it is available, the actual output?
You want to
Dr. Jadhav,
know?
use chat box. Dr. Jadhav, you are requested to write your queries in chat box. You are not audible
I'm
properly.
that Dr. Partho, that chat box, when I type it, it is not going entering. It is not going. So Dr. Suman, you got my question or not? If
Maybe,
you don't get, then that is up to you.
Because it is breaking.
No,
I didn't get. It's breaking. It is breaking. Can
I am speaking
Professor?
Again, I am speaking, please. My question, at one place you have taken the bi cap equal to WH by into HT, if I am correct at that particular place bycap equal to. So that is the estimated output. So why you have taken the estimated output? It means you are not sure that is the output is correct.
Just a second. You want to? I'll just go back to the PPT. Okay. I'll just go back to the PPT and I will just come back.
I don't remember the slide number, but at one place you have estimated that one bycap equal to WH by into HT something.
You are able to see the PPT now?
Yes, your PPT is
Yeah.
visible.
Yeah. I'll come back to your place. So here something. Yeah, here. Is it correct? This part?
Yes. You see that output vector equal to bycap T equal to WHY into HT. So that is bycap is the estimated output. So why you have taken the estimated output? It means you are not sure for the output.
Yeah. It is estimated output only. See, now what you can do, what you can do, you can use this Y estimate and you can pass on to any kind of, transfer function or activation function and you can get an actual output. No problem. Because it is just a sum. WHY into HT is basically a sum. Okay, this we have to feed into a transfer function and you can get the output, actual output. But what is being shown in the diagram YT is nothing but it is an estimated output only. Yes, it is an estimated output.
Yes, because that once we are getting the output, it will be the actual output, not estimated, because we are going
Yeah.
for the propagation method.
This is
output towards the input side.
This you will be able to, after so much of recurring actions, finally you will be able to get the right kind of output. This is
Thank you.
just a diagram. This is just a diagram. What you said is correct. This is an estimated output. After so many recurring actions are taken place, then finally you will be able to get the correct output. In the one example of language modeling, I was just talking about, right? In this case, here instead of it should be 1.7, that is actually the output should be mouse, but it is cat. This is what you're able to see in the first iteration itself. But as you progress with recurring actions, finally you will be able to see the cat will be given slowly, the cat will be having more weightage, and finally if you give once the network is trained, if you give an input there, you will be able to get cat. Okay, so what you said is correct. That is estimated output only, but as you progress, you'll be able to get the correct one.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Chaman.
Thank you, Dr. Simon. So I hope that all participants will be benefited from your talk. And thank you once again from the part of participants from NIT Durgapur and Atal AICT, New Delhi.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
So our next. Okay.